Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Human Beauty Movement podcast, your source for hope, healing, happiness, and humanity. My name is Jennifer Norman. I'm the founder of the Human Beauty Movement and your host. This podcast is here to guide you on your journey of self-love, empowerment, soul alignment, and joy. With each episode, I invite beautiful humans from all corners of the globe to join me for open conversations about their life lessons and the important work that they are doing to help heal humankind. Take a moment now to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. I'm so glad you're here joining me for today's show. The most beautiful life is the one lived in truth. But how often do we trade authenticity for approval, our passions for security, or inner peace for external success? Too many of us follow paths paved by expectations, not by our own deepest truths. And when we do, the cost is far greater than we imagine. Today, we welcome Elinor Moshe, a visionary leader, co-founder of Truth of You, author of 4 books, and host of the Deconstructing You podcast. On the surface, Elinor had it all: accolades, success, a thriving career. But beneath the polished exterior was a woman feeling disconnected from her body, mind, and spirit, trapped in this disempowering structure that she once believed would bring fulfillment. Her journey of unraveling inherited scripts and unconscious conditioning led to a profound transformation, one that brought her back to herself, to healing, and to true freedom. In this episode, we're going to explore the hidden cost of external success on internal well-being, the trap of people-pleasing and identity loss, unconscious patterning and why we stay in toxic spaces, the transformative power of unconscious exploration, and how to create a life aligned with truth and purpose. If you've ever felt the pressure to conform, or if you've wondered what it would take to fully reclaim you, this podcast will shift your perspective and empower you to break free. So let's dive in. Welcome, Elinor.
Jennifer, that was so melodic and beautiful from the outset. Felt like a meditation unto itself. Thank you for having me here.
I am so excited and pleased that we can have this conversation because I think it is one of the most important ones for us as human beings, spiritual beings living in a human experience right now, right? To really understand what is going on, what is happening us, the dualistic nature of ourselves. And this is very, very deep work that you've done and that you're sharing with everybody on how they can live truly more authentically. And so please tell everybody about your journey. I'm sure that they're going to be so interested in hearing about how you came to this realization of what life is really about.
When you look at the notion of beauty, obviously in honor and absolute reverence to the nature of this podcast, how to even construct the notion of beauty? As you were saying, you worked in a physical expression of beauty. And as women, we are so accustomed to measuring beauty through the physical lens. It's easy. It's right there. It's either beautiful or not. And we do this unconsciously. It's feminine. It's material. It's easy. And women also compete primarily with women for the attention of men and use beauty as a tool to do that. We're not doing it for any, are we really doing it for ourselves? And we can explore that later, but that's not where we're going. But what about the beauty in the metaphysical? What about the beauty of our interior architecture? What about the beauty of our dreams? What about the beauty in the unraveling in all versions of ourselves, warts and all? And how much do we actually associate beauty with that? And I was not that person because my conditioning, my very deep conditioning, not just from this life, but across lifetimes, had me look out to assess beauty, therefore the relationship you have with your own life, through the lens of the distorted patriarchy. So that expressed as, I'm the boss babe, and it's the blazer, and I'm a, you can't tell me what to do kind of thing. That was not beautiful. The world called it beautiful. The world awarded that, gave accolades on that, championed that even. But when I started and was invited to examine the actual beauty in my life, sure, I was taking beauty in the small things. But when we are all God in drag, as Alan Watts says, that is not always enough. So when we start that close examination and actually start to understand where is the beauty in life, then we start realizing there are deep voids that exist. Now, beauty for everyone, as you have been on the journey of discovering, means something else to everyone. What I consider as beautiful in my interior space is different to yours, because we also so closely associate beauty with the archetype of Venus. And why do we even do that? Why is she one of the archetypes of beauty that we construct? And from an astrological lens, this is a mental construction, and we project that onto our world. So where my Venus is placed in my astrological chart, that's where I consider beauty. And for me, that is in higher education. It is in the spirit world. It is in the metaphysical world, more so in the metaphysical world, and having a larger expression than, let's say, someone who takes pride and beauty in their home surrounds, which is the fourth house, for example. So when I was introduced into this world of the metaphysical, astrology was one of the first that found me. And it showed me where are all the voids. It started putting a language around my life because I thought it was going so well. I thought when I had that first astrology reading that she was going to come on and say, you just need to hustle more. If you just wake up at 5 a.m. like they tell you in the books, and you just got to invest more, because the more that you invest in coaching and success coaching and business coaching, and if you just sort out your processes, narrative, you will be that success that you are aspiring to. And that was far from the case.
Mm-hmm.
And that provided a spanner in my paradigm. And I tried to shove that under the hood for months until she said something particularly that did manifest in April that year. And it was April that in 2023 where I had two spiritual breakdowns because there was no beauty left in my life. I was not left in my own reality. There was no sense of self anymore because the martyr in me had given over piece by piece by piece from a soul level perspective that there was nothing left. And that is when I cried from the soul and realized that I looked myself dead straight in the eye and said, this can't be it. And whether that was in reference then to beauty, but it was the truth, which is beautiful onto itself as its own form of creation and manifestation, what we can explore within ourselves. And that was when the path of the unconscious revealed itself. The conscious faculties had all fried themselves. All conventional systems, the wheels had absolutely fallen off. And I tried to beautify the external, the external expression of Venus. I had the brilliant appearance. And even internally, that notion of the golden child, more like the glass child, was something to break through, because it was not possible that you are an expression of Venus. How did Venus even get her place as being associated with beauty? Because she's one of the brightest objects that shines from Earth. And I was doing that. I was shining externally. But the lights went off internally a long time ago. So just to wrap up on Venus, to give that context as to why it was referenced, when early telescopes were first developed, astronomers saw Venus as a glowing, almost ethereal presence in the sky. And this was therefore reinforced with the notion of beauty and love, such as Aphrodite in Greek mythology and Venus in Roman tradition. She's dazzling. She is jewel-like. She's shimmering. And that is also a product of the atmosphere reflecting the sunlight onto Venus. So we have this reputation of Venus being celestial and elegant and alluring. And we all know how to put that on externally, but do we have that internally?
Wow, that is so profound. And thank you so much for sharing your story. It's one that I think that a lot of people can relate to. I mean, we used to talk about the midlife crisis. Now it's the quarter life crisis, because people are having existential identity crises earlier. And part of it is probably because of the breakdown in norms and this realization and this breakthrough that there is something more than what patriarchal societies lead us to believe. People feel that the hustle culture and whatnot isn't right for them. It's because they're feeling it in their soul. That is not aligned with what their soul path truly is. And so it is absolutely marvelous that we are being challenged with these kinds of breakdowns, even though it certainly doesn't feel like it when you're going through it. But it really is an awakening. It's an opportunity for us to find ourselves and to break through to the other side of that veil. And I often in the beauty industry will say, isn't it interesting how the word veneer comes from and is like a path from Venus, where unfortunately in the beauty industry, it is just like that facade. It is that superficial aspect, which which makes us feel that this is the me that I want to project to the world, but inside it's a bit hollow. My soul hasn't really found herself yet and hasn't really been able to nurture herself yet. Rather, we are so used to people pleasing and putting on that front and giving of ourselves to others to try to create this life which isn't really authentically ours. I love that you have a podcast and your work is all about the truth of you, deconstructing you to get back to that you who you truly are. Now, some of this may come as a bit esoteric and be like, whoa, what the heck are we all talking about here? So let us break this down into more layman's terms, because I know that there are some folks that are a bit new to the metaphysical. Certainly a lot of people who listen to my podcast are very familiar with it, but for those who may be new and just listening to this for the first time, I like to consider myself a bit of a portal or a gateway or a bridge. I'm kind of a way shower that helps people to understand, like, okay, here you are. You've been living in this path. Maybe it's been like work first, other people first, and you've got this itch. You've got this inclination or something just isn't right, and you want to explore that itch, that calling a little bit further. This show is for you. This show is absolutely one that I think is going to be so helpful because it opens up a door for you to have this self-exploration, this self-discovery a little bit more. And so when we talk about how we dive into the you, Elinor, I would love for you to share with our audience, what was that like for you, and how, because you do this work with other people, your clients and whatnot, with Truth of You, the idea of delving into the real you and understanding the real you beyond what you are projecting to the world. How is it that you help people to understand how to even get there?
Thank you. And you're mentioning the concept of soul. And before I mention that, if I can mention the concept of soul loss, it's from the shamanic realms, and you may have already discussed it, or soul loss or soul fragmentation. And we think we are all of us, and all of who we were meant to be. But how can we do that when not all the parts are home? And that is one of the failures or blind spots of therapy, is that when I'm sitting here and talking to Jennifer, we're not talking to the conscious, the Jennifer she knows how to do a podcast. She knows how to function on the day-to-day. We're not talking to those parts when we are talking about our deepest unconscious wounds. They're the parts that are home, and they're doing great. Clearly, look at what she produces. But when we want to call back ourselves and become all of who we are, this is not just a mental game. This isn't just, okay, I'm going to just do a desktop exercise and find out what my purpose is, and I'm going to go through a 3-step framework. No, because of the events that happened to Jennifer as the only person in the center of her reality, some events may have been greater than her capacity at the time. You could have been in utero. You could have been on the way here. You could have been 1. I could have been 9 months old. It doesn't matter. But it exceeded our capacity based on our template to deal with that. And the part that had to deal with it found it way too excruciating and traumatic. They needed to leave and find a haven in the vast cosmos. So we want to become all of who we are, but we cannot necessarily do that, let alone express that in a beautiful way out to the world without reclaiming those parts. Now, even some of those parts may be right here, right now, but they could be so underworked, so stressed out, so over all the behaviors that you present them. So, for example, my partner and I do shamanic journeys as part of exploring our shadow. And the first journey that I did, I went into the underworld because I was told I need to go into the underworld of self and call it the general manager. So the archetypes, when we journey, they present themselves in ways that we are familiar with. So corporate. So I got presented with the general manager. And cheap, for lack of a better way to frame it, just beat me up for being a people pleaser. I was like, are you done with that? Would you like to keep on going? Because you don't know the consequences of what happens down here every single time you do that. Every single time you serve 2 masters and the master of self is not the primary, then what are the consequences of that on all of the different parts of self? So the general manager who we need to organize the beautiful parts of ourselves, our creativity, our true self, how can they do that when their paperwork on their desk, for example, is full of, I've got to file this people-pleasing emotion, but our emotional car park is already so full that it's on overflow that I didn't even know how to file this. So you just have a general manager who is so stressed out, hates their job, is not given any recognition, and they can't even talk to the boss. I mean, who in their right mind wants to work in a place like this? But this is what it is like when we open the hood on what is the truth of ourselves. Now, that could be quite confronting when someone realizes that they have been, an example, a people pleaser for their entire life. That is extremely confronting when you're having a first-hand encounter with yourself in the underworld, which is like going to get beat up in the back streets of some shoddy suburb as well. That's very confronting, but that is the truth. The truth does not come beautifully packaged in a way that, of course, it is within your capacity to handle it. You will only get shown in any journey, whether it's through past life regression or whatever it is. You only get shown as much as you can handle and integrate at that point in time. They're aware of where you are at, obviously. So we want to be us, but we are not working with parts that either are online, not atrophied, present with us, and working in our best interest because we have misused them, misplaced them, so on and so forth. So when it comes to to answer your question, why should we even do this? Why are we having this conversation? Because using that example of when we lift up the hood on our unconscious, we live estranged from our essence. We are confined by expectations. And these expectations can be so deep-rooted, and the location of them not in this life, that you are still playing by that script and you have no idea. So, for example, if you hurt your elbow, you can localize the pain. It is right here. It is in my right elbow. But what about fear? What about fear of speaking up for yourself? Where is the root cause of that located in your soul's journey? Was it through you stopped speaking up because you were a witch in X life and you were vilified for speaking your truth? You're still carrying that in your throat center. Maybe you spoke up in an abusive marriage that you may have had or in society and you were killed. So do you think the soul is daft and say, well, I'm going to do that again? No, I was murdered. I was persecuted in Earth School for doing that. But that wound is active and ever present right now. So those expectations, whether it's visibility, whether it's how we present ourselves, there are some people who take physical beauty to an extreme and they distort that, as you have seen, and I will not talk to that because you have way more stories than I could. Where does that actually come from? We need to locate that outside of the physical body right here, right now. And then we also become entangled in these narratives that obscure our true nature. So beneath these layers are all the stories that we carry. They could be from childhood. They could be from ancestry. They are the echoes of past lives. And these create these patterns that feel impossible to escape. It's like, I've always been this way. I only know how to be this. So this is the trickster archetype that is telling you, you think you're anything else? This is who you are. You don't deserve anything. Why do you even think that? So then what do people go and do? Some affirmations calls. It's like, yes, I am worthy. How is that? How can that possibly work when you're stacking that affirmation on top of unconscious wounds that do not allow you to be in that expression? So when these hidden dynamics come to light, that is what the great work is, as you have done. Yeah, and are doing, I'm sure. When these hidden dynamics come to our conscious awareness, we can start going, what is this I need to be responsible for taking that out of my energy field? It was not my energy, but I have the responsibility of why I attracted that, closing that energetic loop, and then clearing it out. But then once it's cleared, what am I going to reinstate that with? And many people can clear. What are you adding that with? Or people just add, but they're not clearing. And then it's like, well, great. The managers don't know what to do with that. So when we get to our core, when we get to the root of, it's not just the pain, it's the beauty. We want to know the root of our abundance as we want to know the root of our pain. It's the duality, as you were mentioning beforehand. Then we start claiming our divine potential. Not this man-made potential of you can do anything, you can be the next Elon Musk. It's like, no, we are all purpose-built units. As you have said, it's that wayfinding energy. That is purpose-built to you. Some people are not that. Some people will have unique expressions. Then we get to experience that liberation of spirit that comes from knowing who and what we truly are.
Oh, Elinor, you said so many things that just bring to mind the integration of so much wisdom. We've seen it in the work of Jung from the id and the ego, and the superego is like understanding what our true nature is and then how in the form of society we need to get along, and then the super consciousness that comes in and recognizes the moralistic aspects of, is this right, is this wrong, and how do I need to be in the world, as well as archetypes from Carl Jung, and really thinking about how identity all plays into this. And also the fact of like epigenetic pain and trauma and things that have happened to us that have been either passed down genetically or have perhaps from a soul perspective, we've come to embody in terms of just experiences and things that we've pretty much inculcated into our beings and don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
So the importance of doing this underworld, underbelly shadow work becomes very significant, and it's scary. I mean, when you say that, it's like you're going into the pit of hell. But no, the way that you described it is like, no, I confronted the boss, babe. And it's actually like, oh, that was actually not that bad. It was actually, something that really opened my eyes to what was happening when I was people pleasing and all of that. So it seems scary. It's such important and powerful work to excavate out all the bullshit and the crap that is holding us back and causing us to feel like we can't keep up, like we have to be somebody when it's not really who we really are, and leaving us feeling hollow and of a shell and divorced or misaligned with what our true nature is and how we can truly thrive. I think about the fact that like my mom, my adopted mother, like I'm an adopted being. So I was plucked out of one environment, brought into another. My mom was actually British. She was plucked out of England and brought into New York. And so here we are in New York. And I think about how much she loved like a British rose garden and how much she wanted like a rose garden to grow in our property on Long Island, and how it's not necessarily going to be as quote unquote like robust and beautiful and thriving as in England. And everything is always so much better in England. Look at all the roses, look at the chocolate. And then here I am living in California, in Southern California. If I tried to grow a British rose garden in California, when succulents are indigenous here, it's like, no, it's not like we may be in an environment, in a society, in a culture that doesn't necessarily align with where we can thrive. And sometimes we don't even realize it because we think that's the way that I'm supposed to be. And I'm trying to be a rose garden when the succulents here are thriving. So if we think about how this work can really give us a better understanding of like who we are inside and be okay with that, not say, oh, I wish I was a rose, wish I was as pink and pungent as that, when really we're a peony or we are we're a gorgeous palm tree. We're an amazing cactus, and that's okay, and we can like live through anything. We can weather any storm, but we don't know it because we're too busy looking at that external validation and saying like, oh, that's what I want to be like. And so we twist and morph and contort ourselves and call that progress. We call that success. We call it, and we don't realize what it's really doing to us at that soul level where we've lost ourselves. And that's why there's so many people feeling lost, anxious, depressed, lonely. There's an epidemic of all of these things now. Perhaps that's part of the reason why, perhaps.
Very much so. When we are so separated from, as you said, who we're always meant to be, and we become, I love the word contortionist. I use that at the start because you're like, this is a great space that I should not be fitting in. Let me try and consciously to mold and mesh myself unconsciously into roles, rooms that do not work for me. And environment is an underrated part of this conversation because you can be doing your great work. You can go out and do the breath work. You can go out and have all of the wonderful healing experiences. If you fundamentally come back to the same place that created the wound, is reinfecting the wound, it can't heal. It simply cannot. And that's from physically as obvious, but from a consciousness perspective, there's a concept of quantum entanglement. You will inherently take on the imprint, the energy of the distortions around you. It becomes familiar. It has become that which you only know. If you press on something for long enough, eventually it will get the imprint. It is how it works. So people who work in oppressive places, drab places, even corporate offices that just have fluorescent lights hitting you all the time with unnatural cycles. 9 to 5 is not a natural cycle, especially for women who work on our menstrual cycle better than we do the 9 to 5 labor market cycle, whatever it is. That hasn't that all has an impact. That is putting you in unnatural states of being. Now, this is not to say there is a place and time for corporate. There is a place and time for the hustle, whether you feel like it or not. There are ego's got to eat as well. We're both not going to sit here and say you can meditate your way and this is all you do and everything will be great. I mean, the world is not set up for that at this point in time. So when we look at our environment, we also are so disassociated, especially if you are in the environment which caused the wounding in the first place. You become callous to it. You become disassociated to it. Why is corporate? You look at it and there's so many robots in there who do not feel, who do not value feeling because it's weak, because it is not the place for it. But why? Because the level of disassociation and no space for our emotional body to exist. And this is, of course, a generalization. There are brilliant organizations out there. There absolutely are. And hats off to all of them for being able to be so healthy in a toxic system. Then that, of course, has its impact. If you go home to a narcissistic husband, it is not because your husband is therefore not home. The energy is imprinted into the walls, into the bed that you share. It is everywhere. And if you're not cleaning, protecting, and fundamentally seeking how to leave that environment, you can't be your true self because you have never also been your true self in that space, metaphysically or physically.
So I guess the next question that a lot of people would be asking is like, okay, I identified that there is this separation, there's a misalignment here. I want to live more truthfully and more authentically. How do I even begin? What are the steps that I take? There are a whole lot of things that, Elinor, you've described that may be like, oh, this is new. Oh, you did tarot, the past life regression, the shadow work. Like some of that is like, there's like a whole spiritual menu of modalities and opportunities for healing that we can get into. How does somebody know where to begin and what's right for them?
That is a beautiful question. Thank you for asking. The first thing is enjoy the breakdown. Enjoy it. Because it is beautiful too. If you've had that awareness where it's coming off autopilot, it's you think that you're flying the plane, but then you wake up and you realize that you're the passenger. There's no one in the cockpit and you have children on board, for example. That moment of realization will hit you and take up your whole vista. It is so scary. Even the thought back then of, I remember when I had the astrology reading, she's like, you will need to go out there and tell people that you are not authentic. And I'm like, me? You're going to tell me to do that? And that just spun me out. And now I can't speak it fast enough, let alone the thought of, well, if I'm not the construction coach, then who am I? It's like, do you not realize what I was constructing is, again, an external identity? And even those thoughts sent me into sleepless night and just trying to hold on and I needed validation. That was a patterning. It's like, Jennifer, just tell me everything's going to be okay and tell me tell me I am who I am. It's like, what am I doing? But when you have that breakdown, fall straight into it. You feel like you're falling apart, but it is the ego construct that is falling apart as it has to. It's that tower moment in the tarot. And even though that's not at the start of the major arcana, it happens as it does. So the first thing first is give yourself permission to fall into the void. It is beautiful. Now, when I'm in the void, I don't always feel beautiful. And when you're out of it, it's like, that wasn't so bad. I'm ready to go again and it's going to be more intense and I'm good with that now. So the first thing is to locate yourself. And if you are locating yourself in the breakdown, then so be it. And to locate ourselves, that does require an introduction of languages. And that's whether it's astrology that finds you, whether it's human design, whether it's tarot, whether it's breath work, whether it's working with your sex and eros, whether it's past life regression, whatever the modality that does find you at your call of need, it starts to put a language around your experience. Because like you said, all of these languages are new. The words that we're using today, they were not part of my lexicon a mere 2 years ago. I couldn't talk in archetypes. I couldn't relate to anything. I only had the mental construct that I was conventionally given, and everything that I needed existed outside of that. So my picture frame was way too small. You need to expand the frame and you need the language to do that. Now, we know that the truth is both all of the models and it is none of it. They all have a built-in redundancy because the soul knows what the soul wants. It knows why it came here. But to help the human catch up, to help the ego start to make constructs, which is what it does and what it needs to also survive in this world. Like naming ourselves as a construct. If we didn't have a name, then you wouldn't be able to introduce me as Elinor and I wouldn't be able to remember you as Jennifer. So we work with constructs. They are fine. They have a place. But starting to introduce new languages helps people that do that excavation process. They find the truth buried beneath the inherited stories, as we were talking about before. And these models provide a profound exploration and identity of soul. For example, soul contract numerology. That is a time-honored spiritual practice. And it allows people to understand soul. What is that? But the soul traveled in a vehicle through this dimension and it wanted to experience specific things. So if I'm going to try and work outside of those experiences, I am negating the energy of what my soul wants. That creates misery. That can create soul-crushing misery, which then expresses in depression, anxiety, overeating, overcompensation, even over traveling is an expression of that. So languages helped us at first because then it started to be like, okay, well, this is the baseline. And I'm all the way somewhere out here and I don't even have all the parts. And I'm realizing what is going on in this reality that I've unconsciously constructed. Some people need that first. Other people can dive straight in, uplift their life, even if it's 100-year-old, well, not 100-year-old, but a 50-year-old oak tree with roots out of that deep. Some can up and go. Some cannot. Some will not do anything. Everyone is on different places in the cosmic cycle, not just in this life. And we don't know the template that people came in with and what their soul wants to experience. So at first it was also locating. Take the time to locate and support. I did not understand how valuable support is. And I spoke to one person who unraveled in a silo all by themselves. I'm like, that
Wow.
is one strong soul. That's something else completely. But allowing yourself to lean into support. Now, this is where it also gets, as you may have experienced as well, people are not going to open you and hold space so easily. I remember the conversations, and I still have the conversations where my shadow is triggering their shadow, and people do not want that. They are not wanting to confront that. So you may be gaslit, you may be gaslit. You may be told that you're absolutely crazy for entertaining that notion. You will not find the permission to unravel and explore your truth with the people who loved you for your wounded self and the behaviors that came with it. So it will take time to plug into spaces. Podcasting is fantastic like this. The conscious mind might be rejecting it, but there is a part that it's like, that, I need that, and that is where we're heading. And that unconscious faculty can start illuminating things in your life. So those 3 stages alone can take 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. It matters not. Time is a construct as well. And if people can stay the path, and this is the beauty of it, is staying the path. Because my partner and I, we were talking about it last night, how much we love the unraveling. We love the exploration. Do we love it in the moment? Not always. But it is because we stay the path that what is available to us becomes so grand that we know we will manifest things that we don't even know we want to manifest or can manifest at this point in time. And that is not relevant to the physical. That is about our expression, because we want to return our soul to the next character that will get to have it in its most optimal condition, because we were given a soul that was distraught. I was given a soul that was distraught and so deeply disempowered. I will not give our soul to the next character in such a disempowering way, because I do not want another woman to experience the template that I have. So when we look at the path, as you were so always pointing in the direction of soul, that is the direction that we're pointing at. And that is the call to allow the soul to be so loved and so loving. And imagine if everyone did that, the kind of collective that we would manifest.
You said some things that really brought to my attention a couple of concepts. One being the concept of acceptance. The fact that there are all of these different modalities, some of them may seem foreign, some of them may seem scary, some of them may seem like, oh, something I want to try. They become interesting in the acceptance of the fact that not everything is for everyone. Mm-hmm. Your healing path and your exploration is your own. Other people may be like, oh, tarot, that is BS. That's not for me. Numerology, that's not for me. It may be for you, but there is the acceptance that other people might not get it. But if it's for you, allowing it, accepting that it can be for you without that judgment, without feeling like, oh, if that person says that it's gobbledygook or too woo-woo, that doesn't mean that it's too woo-woo for me. It may be absolutely the woo that I need. I might be Wu-Tang Clan and I need the woo. The other thing is the concept of curiosity, because we are here to be consciously curious, and we grow by being curious. And so getting curious about what is underneath the covers, what is underneath the veil, what is causing you to feel what you feel and notice what you notice. And getting curious about saying, oh, looks like what I said might have triggered that other person, as you said, the shadow, and the shadow may be like completely inflaming each other, is like, oh, my wounded self might be triggering that person's wounded self. And maybe that's what's causing this conflict right now. And being aware and understanding that that's what's happening. It doesn't need to be like this tremendous blow up, like, oh, that person's crazy and I'm never going to speak to that person again. You might have just hit a mark and recognize like, oh, this doesn't mean the end of our relationship. It doesn't mean that we don't see eye to eye. Maybe it does, but getting curious and recognizing triggers, recognizing where you feel joy and alignment, being curious and seeing that you might want to explore some of these modalities a little bit more deeply, because they could lead you to something very exciting that your soul has been yearning for and unconsciously has been seeking, but you've been too afraid to pursue it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was so beautifully said. You are so melodic in your narration and your exploration. I love it. And the quest is the questioning. Quest it lives in the questioning. And my partner is, I say chronic, but not in a bad way. He's a phenomenal questioner, and I have learned how to do that from him, because the answer will always present itself. It will not present itself more than not in a way that we like it. Nothing's going to come to us with a beautiful bow and a package and beautiful packaging, and that's not how it works. But you are spot on with that, feeling that curiosity, because people stop when the curiosity ends. But we are a depth of mystery that is unknown. We, even as we sit here talking, there are levels of awareness that we have not tapped into, but we would like to get there. And it starts also with that curiosity, that questioning.
Yes, yes. And I wanted to touch also on, because I speak about people pleasing a lot, and it's because I am a recovering people pleaser. And because I think that a lot of what we do in society, I think culturally, females tend to be more people pleasers than men tend to be. I'm generously overstating that, but there is this aspect of servitude and of subservience and of making a home and going out of your way, giving beyond what your capacity necessarily is as moms, as sisters, as daughters, etc. And so understanding where that comes from a social aspect, and recognizing what the grain of what your soul is telling you and why it might be manifesting in this way that is perhaps distorted because of societal norms. So, for example, like I, in this bodily form, racially Asian, which people would be like, oh, you have a subservient culture. My adopted mother being British, there's this aspect of polite society and it's just like keeping quiet. And so for the longest time, I felt children needed to be seen and not heard. And I was also taught that I needed to be the hostess with the mostest. I had to just give and martyr myself to the nth degree, because that was holy, because that's what a good woman does. That's what a good girl does. And that's what's going to please a man. Like these are the things that we were taught. But where in the soul journey did I finally learn, like there is this aspect of servitude without necessarily going to martyrdom. And there is an aspect of being polite, but being able to have a voice and be respectful about it. So there is language, and there are these boundaries and these places where your soul may find, it's different for everyone, of course, but I was finding, doing this soul work really led me to understanding that I'm not just a human being on this earth to make a living and to XYZ. Like I am actually a channel and a conduit of energy, and that energy yearns to be in service to compassion. It yearns to be in service to giving others a voice. Hence, it's like why I was like, oh my God, I found this epiphany and this beauty in podcasting, in holding space. And that's where it shines. But until you explore that work, you may be pigeonholing yourself and your soul into a distortion or contortion, our beautiful word, that may not necessarily be the right puzzle piece for your soul to be in. So So I love that this all comes to that curiosity of just like, where are those nooks and crannies and corners and how can it manifest itself into a place where you are thriving and not feeling boxed in and shoved into a corner.
There's a quote, I'm not great with remembering names or quotes, but it was something along the lines of, give me a box and I will eat it. It's that energy of, I need to get out of this box, and people pleasing is quiet the box and mental prison that we build for ourselves. And it happens individually, collectively, spiritually, planetary as well. And what are we trying to do when we're people pleasing? It is to get scraps of love. We are ultimately begging unconsciously for scraps of love because there is a void there of love. Why do some people stay at work till 10 p.m. every night, forego their family, forego their health, forego whatever is important to them? It could be pottery class. It doesn't matter. It's important to you to work for the boss, to hopefully in 6 months' time get something. It's love. It is trying to fill a deep void of love that was not available, or maybe if it was available, the heart walls didn't allow you to access it or to feel it. So that will then manifest in overcompensation, in, as you said, being that perfect, polite, see me, do not hear. It will manifest in so many different ways. But at the root of it, we are also have been conditioned to split off from ourselves and to serve those two masters, whether that master is the boss, society, the culture, whatever level it is. That is what is really happening here. And we continue to do that when we are in our collective and individual disempowered state. But we want to access our power and our love. The thing is, they're not here. They are not here in this environment, in this level of conscious awareness. It's not available with the ego in the way and the conditioning. This is why those, what we were talking about beforehand, those trance states where you can access anything you want, for better, the love, the abundance, the dreams within you, all for worse, the general manager that beats you up and the manager of the body who's like, you done with XYZ? That's where we can access it. So on the conscious ego level, the people-pleasing tendencies will run rife. But to access where that came from, why that was established, we need to go beyond the behaviors that actually established it. And like you, A+ people pleaser, the perfect doormat, the perfect boxing bag, and the perfect sponge. And until people also, as you had, connect with the consequences of when you are doing that. In that moment, how are you dishonoring yourself? If you saw a child do that, and the child was physically beaten for that behavior, would you accept that? I mean, you'd have to be a monster if you did. But that is also what is happening on levels and layers that we can't see. So just because we can't see it in the physical right there as an immediate consequence to our actions, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist and not happening. So for all the recovering people pleasers out there, I mean, more power to you all, because it's a subservience, I'm not good enough cup that we're all trying to fill, but there's a hole in the bottom. So it's fundamentally flawed as well. So people pleasing is a massive one to unravel.
Yes, yes. And I will say that you were saying, we're looking for these scraps of love. There's always this feeling like I don't deserve it, or this tense that I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, and looking for love in another, looking for love in any other. And what we really are yearning for is that feeling, that emotion that we haven't necessarily learned to give to ourselves. Because when we are looking for love, or if we actually find true love, it's not necessarily like that person, I found love and that person's going to love me. It's like that person sparked love within me and brought it out of me. And that is what I'm feeling right now. So you have the opportunity to nurture that and give that to yourself. You can give that feeling of, which I call beauty, because I believe beauty is a feeling. It's not something that you see. It's something that is just like what you feel in your soul. If you can harness, enliven, and ablaze that love and that beauty and that feeling like I am seen and I am heard and I matter within yourself, then you are an empowered being. You have really helped to release a part of your soul that was yearning to thrive. And that's when you know and you can feel that it is right. It's not that, you feel lonely, you feel depressed, you feel dejected because of someone else. It's that recognizing that you can give it to yourself first. Sometimes I'll train people on talk about the 5 love languages. And I'm like thinking, well, they always serve something a lot deeper than that. But if that's the surface level that helps you to enter in, to say, I'm looking for quality time. If I'm going out and dating, dating and I'm looking for somebody, that person that gives me quality time is the one that I really feel connected with. Well, it's probably because maybe your inner child didn't have good quality time, and you really could benefit from giving yourself quality time first. Like how often do you really sit with yourself and just really have that good talk with, yourself, or journaling, or going down into your authentic self and spending good quality time? Or is it buzzing with doom scrolling or busyness or gotta do this on my to-do list? Is that why you're yearning for quality time? Because you haven't really given it to yourself first. Things like that.
It all points in a much deeper direction. And sometimes what it is that event, like what you were just describing, that's the conduit in, and as you were saying, the conduit out, and seeing what lives in that middle band as well. And it always does point to a bigger theme playing out. And that's where Tara has been so wonderful in helping understand what is the archetypal theme that is playing out. So for me, there's been a lot of themes of disappointment, and that manifests in, well, that person could have done that for me, and this and that, and expectations. Like, that really had nothing to do with anyone. That had a lot to do with my own behavior in those moments and everything that came before that as well. So again, that's where looking at the language, the models, to understand the deeper themes playing out also helps us to feel that, well, I'm not just building a narrative here, there is truth to it.
Wow. Well, Elinor, I feel like we have talked about so much, a lot of deep topics, yet I feel like we can talk forever. So I would love to have you on again so we can explore a lot of this even further. But because we are at time, I just wanted to make sure that we were able to have you share where people can find you, how they can work with you, if they want to even go further on a personal level.
Thank you, Jennifer. This felt melodic, and the time has not existed in this space. That's how you also know its soul was here, because there was no clocks, there was nothing of the man-made. It really evolved here. It was so beautiful. So thank you. I'm the Elinor Moshe on Instagram, Elinor Moshe on LinkedIn, and our website is truthofyou.com.au. We of course have readings available, past life regressions, and by the time this episode is released, we have launched astrological profiles. So for people wanting to, look, I'm busy, I need to understand what the hell is happening here, then astrology starts to provide the language around this. So whether it's health, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, whether you just want to understand your personal landscape, astrology starts to bridge you from what you thought you knew into the unconscious world. So we have that available for people who, not everyone wants to talk to someone on this journey. Some people want that solitude and to do it themselves as well. And of course, we are constantly developing more things like journeys and bringing more things online as we unfold. So too does the business. So thank you, Jennifer.
Wow, Elinor. Well, it was such a pleasure to have you. The work is Truth of You. The podcast is Deconstructing You. Please get in touch with Elinor Moshe and her lovely partner. And I do look forward to having you back on the podcast again. Thank you so much, Elinor, for being such a beautiful human.
Thank you, Jennifer. Right back at you.
Thank you for listening to the Human Beauty Movement podcast. Be sure to follow, rate, and review us wherever you stream podcasts. The Human Beauty Movement is a community-based platform that cultivates the beauty of humankind. Check out our workshops, find us on social media, and share our inspiration with all the beautiful humans in your life. Learn more at thehumanbeautymovement.com. Thank you so much for being a beautiful human.